King's Landing smelled like dust and secrets. Lord Eddard Stark, known as Ned, stood in the Red Keep's garden, gripping the letter in his hand. The words inside were heavy, dangerous even. He had read them again and again. Jon Arryn had died for this truth. And now it was in Ned's hands. Cersei Lannister's children were not King Robert's. That alone could burn the whole realm down. Ned had always believed in honor, in doing what was right. But this wasn't a sword fight. It was poison in the air, a web of lies and power. Still, he knew one thing for sure. Robert had to know. If the king died without the truth, then Joffrey, that cruel boy, would sit on the Iron Throne. And that would be the beginning of the end. The last time he had waited, someone died. He couldn't wait again. He called on his most trusted man, Sir Jory Castle, and gave him orders. "Prepare my horse. I ride to the king alone." Jory hesitated. "My lord, perhaps we should wait. Bring more proof. Bring the small council." "No," Ned said firmly. "No more waiting. No more secrets." The walk to the Tower of the Hand felt longer than usual. His thoughts raced. Would Robert believe him? Would he lash out? Or worse, would he not care? When Ned finally entered the king's chambers, Robert was seated near the fire, drinking wine. He looked older than his years, tired and bloated, worn down by battles of politics more than swords. "Ned," Robert said with a tired smile, "I was wondering when you'd stop hiding in your papers." "My king," Ned said, bowing his head, "I bring news. Dark news." Robert raised a brow. "What is it now? Another raven from the wall?" "No, this is about your family, about the Queen." Robert's face darkened instantly. "Speak plainly, Ned." Ned took a deep breath. "Your children, they are not yours." The room went silent. Robert slowly stood, the goblet in his hand shaking slightly. "What did you say?" "They are Jaime's. Cersei and Jaime. They have been lovers for years. I have proof. Jon Arryn died trying to tell you this. The seed is strong, Robert. Your bastards all have black hair. Your supposed son Joffrey, Osgolden, has golden." For a long moment Robert didn't speak. His face turned red, then pale, then unreadable. Then suddenly he laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound. "I always knew there was something wrong," he muttered. "The way Joffrey walks, the way he talks. He never had my blood." He turned and hurled the goblet into the fire. Wine sizzled on the coals. "And Cersei," he whispered, "all these years, under my roof." Then his voice rose. "Guards." 2 King's guards stepped in, surprised. "Bring the Queen here. Now!" "My lord." One of them hesitated. "Now!" Robert roared. Ned stood still, heart pounding. This was it. There was no going back. Within minutes, Cersei entered the room in a flowing green gown, calm as ever. But when she saw Ned and then Robert's face, her expression changed. "What is this?" Robert stepped forward like a lion ready to kill. "Tell me, Cersei, tell me you haven't been spreading your legs for your brother." Her mask cracked. "You drunken fool." Robert slapped her hard across the face. She stumbled, bleeding at the lip. "Answer me." She stood straight, blood on her mouth, and with ice in her eyes said, "Yes, every child, every lie. And you were too blind to see it." Ned's heart dropped. Even he wasn't ready for her to admit it like that. Robert turned to his guards, shaking with rage. "Take her to the dungeons. Jaime, too. If he resists, kill him." Cersei laughed. "Do you think you're safe now, Robert? You think the Lannisters will just watch as you destroy their name?" But the guards dragged her away. Her screams echoed through the hallway like a storm. Robert sat back down slowly, like a man who had just watched his world collapse. Ned stood beside him, unsure of what came next. "War is coming," Robert whispered. And it was. The next morning, King's Landing felt different, quieter, like the city was holding its breath. Word hadn't spread yet, but behind the stone walls of the Red Keep, chaos was rising like floodwaters. The Queen was locked away in the dungeons beneath the castle. Jaime Lannister, the infamous Kingslayer, had vanished the night before. His armor was found in his chambers, but no one had seen him leave. The gold cloaks were already searching every gate and dock. Ned Stark knew this was only the beginning. Robert Baratheon, once a lion-hearted warrior, now looked like a man haunted by ghosts. He hadn't left his chamber since the confrontation. Wine was his only company. His hands trembled, his eyes bloodshot, his voice low and broken. "They all lied to me," he said to Ned. "All of them. My whole reign, built on lies, and I was too blind, too drunk to see it." "You are not blind now," Ned said softly. "You acted with strength." But Robert didn't seem to hear him. "I loved Lyanna, and I married her killer's cousin, had her children under my roof, and they mocked me with their golden hair." Ned didn't speak. The past was too painful to touch. But the future, there was still time to fix that. "My king," he said gently, "you must name a new heir." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "Stannis." Ned nodded. "He is your rightful brother, your blood. The throne is his by law." Robert leaned back. "Stannis has the personality of a boiled potato, no charm, no people skills." "But he is just," Ned said, "and he is not a liar." Robert looked away. That same afternoon, Littlefinger slithered into Ned's solar face, calm as always, though Ned could feel the tension under his smirk. "You certainly stirred the pot, Lord Stark," he said, pouring himself wine like he owned the place. "Half the court is whispering already." "Let them whisper," Ned said coldly. "Oh, they'll do more than whisper. You've declared war on House Lannister, whether you see it or not." Ned stood, towering over the smaller man. "Robert knows the truth now. That's what matters." Littlefinger smiled. "And what will the Queen's father say when he hears? Tywin Lannister doesn't take insults lightly. You've imprisoned his daughter. His golden son is missing. You've humiliated the lion. He won't wait for ravens. He'll send armies." Ned's jaw clenched. "Then let him. The truth must stand, no matter the cost." Littlefinger took a slow sip of wine. "Honorable, as always. But you play a dangerous game. The realm is full of players who cheat." The next evening, Robert finally held a small council meeting. Varys, Littlefinger, Renly, and Ned attended. The atmosphere was thick with unease. Robert entered slowly, thinner than usual, his beard unkempt, eyes heavy with shame and fire. "Joffrey is not my son," he said aloud. "No hesitation, nor is Tommen, nor my cellar. They are the spawn of incest and treason. I hereby declare them illegitimate." The room froze. Varys blinked. Renly stiffened. Littlefinger only smiled. "Stannis Baratheon is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne," Robert continued. "A raven will be sent to Dragonstone at once, and I want the High Septon to be informed. The gods will know the truth." Renly spoke up, voice quiet but firm. "Brother, this will cause war." Robert met his gaze, then let it come. By nightfall, the city was already boiling. Varys whispered of Lannister men gathering in silence. The gold cloaks remained uncertain who to serve. Rumors filled the brothels and markets. "The Queen's a traitor," some said. Others whispered, "The King's gone mad." Ned sent word to his wife, Catelyn, in the Vale, urging her to keep their children safe. He didn't trust the streets anymore, not with the snakes hiding in plain sight. That same night, a message arrived from Tywin Lannister himself. No seal, no titles, just a single line written in bold, angry script. "Release my daughter or bleed." Ned showed it to Robert, who merely grunted. "Tell him to send his army then. I'll be waiting." But Ned knew. The game wasn't over. Jaime was still out there. Tywin was already moving his pieces, and in the shadows of King's Landing, someone else was watching. Top, planning, and they would kill to keep their secrets buried. The next few days in King's Landing felt like the quiet before a storm, but under that silence, danger was moving fast. Ned Stark had men loyal to him, true Northmen. But this was not the North. This was a city built on whispers and betrayal. For every man who bowed to Ned, 2 others sent word to Tywin Lannister. Despite the risk, Ned stood firm. He had already sent ravens to Stannis Baratheon, naming him rightful heir. He had also begun gathering evidence witnesses, documents, records from Maester Pycelle to prove the Lannister incest to the entire realm. The truth would protect the crown, he believed, but truth meant nothing to those who worshipped power. On the 5th day, Robert Baratheon received word from the hunting party he was meant to lead, but had cancelled last minute due to Ned's warning. A stag had been found gutted in the woods, its belly torn open by boar tusks. Robert stared at the message in silence, then tossed it into the fire. "Would have been me," he muttered. "That's how they would have done it. Get me drunk. Let the beast finish me off." Ned nodded grimly. "You were never meant to return." Robert laughed bitterly. "And they say the lioness is just a lady in silk." But not everyone agreed with Robert's change of heart. That night in the royal chambers, Renly Baratheon came to Ned in secret. He was dressed for travel, a sword at his hip, 2 guards at his back. "Ned," he said quietly, "you must act now. Take the throne. Rule until Stannis comes. Robert is too weak." Ned frowned. "He is still the king." Renly stepped closer. "For how long? The Lannisters won't wait. You have support. The city will follow you. Name yourself protector and take Joffrey into custody now." Ned's voice was sharp. "I will not seize power like a thief in the night." Renly stared at him with frustration. "Then you'll lose everything, and so will Robert." He left without another word. The next morning, Ned found Varys in the garden feeding the birds. "Little birds have told me troubling things," Varys whispered. "Lord Tywin has mobilized 10,000 men, marching toward the Riverlands. And Jaime, he's not hiding anymore." Ned's stomach turned. "Where?" "East," Varys said. "He attacked a Tully convoy near Harrenhal, slaughtered the men, took prisoners. One of them was your wife's uncle." Ned's breath caught. "He's declaring war." "Not declaring, Lord Stark," Varys said softly. "Beginning." Ned went to Robert at once. "We must act. Call the banners. If Tywin is marching, we must be ready." Robert, now sober and solemn, gave a tired nod. "Do what you must. But I won't live in fear anymore." That afternoon, Ned issued the order. Ravens flew from the rookery to Winterfell, to River Run, to the Vale. War was coming, and the North would not be caught sleeping. But while Ned moved openly, others moved in shadows. That same night, a messenger boy came to Ned's chambers holding a note sealed with wax. "Meet me in the crypts. Come alone. L." The writing was familiar. He thought of Littlefinger, but something felt off. Still, Ned couldn't risk ignoring it. If there was information, a plot, anything that could save lives, he had to hear it. He left with only a dagger tucked beneath his cloak and a lantern in hand. The crypts beneath the Red Keep were ancient, cold and silent. His footsteps echoed off the stone as he descended deeper into the dark. He found no one waiting, only a single torch flickering. Then he heard it, the sound of a sword being unsheathed behind him. He turned fast, but not fast enough. A blade pressed to his throat. "Lord Stark," said a calm voice, "we can't have you ruining everything." Ned recognized the face. It wasn't Littlefinger. It was one of his own guards. Or so he thought. "Do it," the man whispered to someone in the dark. But before the blade could fall, a second figure struck from the shadows. Jory Cassell, Ned's loyal captain. He drove his sword clean through the traitor's side. The man screamed and fell. Jory pulled Ned back. "Trap, we have to go. Now." They ran, boots slamming against the stone, lanterns swinging wildly. Behind them, footsteps followed. Ned reached the surface panting, furious, heart racing. There were more traitors in the Red Keep than he had thought. But now, it wasn't just about truth. It was about survival. By dawn, the Red Keep was a battlefield in disguise. Ned Stark didn't sleep. He sat in his solar with a map of Westeros stretched across the table, his eyes scanning the riverlands, the crown lands, the north. His ink bottle lay open, but the letter he had begun to Stannis remained unfinished. He had nearly been murdered in the crypts of the very castle he was supposed to protect. One of his own men had turned on him. A Lannister-paid traitor, no doubt. But the most chilling part? That meant someone inside his ranks was already compromised, and possibly more than one. Jory stood near the window, sword at his side, eyes sharp. "You can't walk the halls alone anymore, my lord." "I won't," Ned said finally. "But we must act. Quietly. We're running out of time." Outside, the city looked calm, but the streets were boiling with tension. Lannister men had started arriving from the west, dozens by the hour. Most wore plain cloaks, but spies in the market had seen them gathering near the Lion's Gate. Tywin wasn't waiting. He was already inside the city, in pieces. Meanwhile, Joffrey had vanished. The boy who once strutted like a king in waiting had not been seen for 3 days. Some said he was hiding in Maegor's holdfast under orders from his grandfather. Others claimed he was with Jaime, far from the capital. But one thing was certain, his absence was not by chance. That morning, Varys visited Ned again, gliding in like a ghost with his hands folded in his sleeves. "You've caused quite the stir, Lord Stark." "I exposed the truth. That is not a crime." Varys gave a sad smile. "Not a crime, no, but not exactly safe either." Ned leaned forward. "How many of the gold cloaks can we trust?" "Half," Varys said plainly. "Maybe. Janos Slynt plays both sides. He follows coin, not crowns. Then we need to find someone else to command them." "There is no time," Varys whispered. "Tywin's letter reached the small council this morning. He demands justice. He calls for his daughter's release and the punishment of all who've insulted House Lannister. And if we don't comply, he swears to burn the Riverlands." Ned stood, anger surging. Then he will face war. But war, Ned soon realized, was already here. That evening, a riot broke out near Flea Bottom. A merchant with yellow hair had his stall burned to the ground by angry citizens shouting, "Lannister spies!" The gold cloaks tried to contain it, but they did so violently, killing 3 small folk and setting off more unrest. The fires spread. Then worse news came. Cersei was gone. Gone from the dungeons. No sign of forced entry, no dead guards, just a broken set of chains and blood on the walls. Ned's stomach dropped. She had help. Jory cursed. From inside, Robert was furious. He stormed through the halls like the warrior he once was, shoving guards aside, demanding answers, roaring threats. But there was no one left to punish. His wife had vanished, and his son was nowhere to be found. That night, Ned finally finished the letter to Stannis, sealing it with the direwolf of House Stark. But before he could send it, Littlefinger arrived, uninvited as usual, wearing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You look tired, Lord Stark." "Politics will do that. I'm done playing games." "Oh, but the game has just begun." Ned narrowed his eyes. "You knew. You helped her escape." Littlefinger shrugged. "What is power, Ned? The man who holds the sword, or the man who controls who gets stabbed? I trusted you, And that was your first mistake. Ned stepped forward, fury in his eyes. If you've endangered Robert, Littlefinger laughed softly. Robert's just a man with a crown and no control. The real power is shifting while you write your letters and chase your honor. Then he stepped closer and whispered something that made Ned go cold. They're not just planning to kill your truth, Stark. They're planning to kill you. And with that, he left. Jory shut the door behind him, but the words stayed. Ned turned to the fire, his hands shaking. He had tried to save the realm with honor. Now, he would have to save it with steel. The sun rose over King's Landing like a warning red, angry and low. Ned Stark stood at his window, watching the sky bleed into the city. He had sent the raven to Stannis the night before, but even that didn't bring him peace. Every hour he felt the walls closing in. The Red Keep was no longer a seat of power. It was a trap, and every shadow hid a knife. Robert hadn't left his chambers. The king had sunk into a silence Ned hadn't seen before. He refused to eat, refused to meet with the council, and barely acknowledged Ned's presence. Only his wine goblet stayed close. Jory entered the Solar with grim news. We found 3 of our men dead. Northmen, their throats slit behind the stables. No one saw anything. Ned clenched his fists. The Lannisters are clearing the way. They're sending a message. But messages could go both ways. That morning, Ned summoned Sir Barristan Selmy. If there was one man in the city whose honor still meant something, it was him. "I want you to take command of the Gold Cloaks," Ned said. Barristan raised an eyebrow. "Lord Stark, they answer to Janos Snit. I don't trust Janos, and I don't trust anyone the Lannisters can buy. If this city is to stand, I need someone whose sword doesn't bend with gold." Barristan was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "I will do what I can, but be warned, Slynd won't step aside peacefully." As Barristan left, Maester Pycelle arrived. His steps were slow, his face pale. "I bring grave news," he said, holding a sealed raven scroll, "from Riverrun. Lord Tywin has sacked a dozen villages. The Tully banners are being raised. War is no longer a whisper, it has begun." Ned opened the scroll, read it quickly, and handed it to Jory. "They're baiting us, trying to draw the Riverlands into chaos. Robb must be warned." Just then, a bell rang in the distance, a heavy sound, the bell of the Great Sept. Ned turned sharply. Someone died. Jory nodded, already moving. "I'll find out who." But by the time he returned, his face was white. "It's the king," he said. Ned's heart sank. "What? Robert? You's dead." The world stopped. Jory continued, voice hollow. "They say he fell from the window in his tower. Drunk, landed on the rocks, his body's barely recognizable. Ned didn't move. His legs felt like stone. That wasn't an accident. He knew it. In his bones, he knew. They got to him." Jory looked at him, jaw clenched. This was no fall. This was murder. Ned nodded slowly. "They waited for the right moment. When we looked away, word spread fast. By midday, the small council had gathered, and Littlefinger was already playing the game. "The king is dead," he announced, standing at the head of the table. "May the gods receive him." Varys bowed his head. Renly looked sick. Pycelle just stared at the floor. Then Littlefinger opened a scroll with practiced ease. Robert's last command was clear. "Lord Eddard Stark is named protector of the realm until the heir comes of age." He handed the letter to the council. But before anyone could speak, the chamber doors burst open. Cersei Lannister entered, alive, dressed in black. Behind her was Sir Jaime Lannister in full armor, a blade at his hip and cold fury in his eyes, and beside them Joffrey, crowned, golden hair shining. Smiling, Cersei's voice rang out, sharp and proud. "The king is dead. Long live the king." Ned stepped forward. "Joffrey is no king. He is not Robert's son. I have the letter, signed by the king himself." Cersei took the letter from his hand, read it slowly, then tore it in half. "The king is dead," she repeated, "and my son sits the throne. Anyone who says otherwise is a traitor." Joffrey climbed the steps to the Iron Throne and sat, eyes glinting with triumph. "Seize him," he said. Ned's men reached for their swords, but it was too late. The gold cloaks had already drawn theirs, and they weren't pointing at Cersei, they were pointing at Ned. Janos Slynt smiled cruelly as he stepped forward. "Sorry, Lord Stark. The Queen pays better." Jory lunged, but a blade struck him from behind. He fell, blood spilling across the floor. Ned fought. He struck one man down, then another, but there were too many. The sword smashed his knee. Another cracked across his face. He fell, blood in his mouth. His vision blurred. Above him, Joffrey stood tall, like a boy playing at war. "You'll confess," the boy king said coldly, "or you'll die a traitor." The throne room faded into darkness. Ned Stark was captured, and the game had changed forever. Darkness. That's all Ned Stark knew for days. No sunlight, no wind, no sound except the dripping of water and the scurrying of rats. His head throbbed. His leg burned. His mouth was dry like dust. They'd thrown him into the black cells beneath the Red Keep, the same dungeons where monsters and rebels were forgotten. He was a lord of Winterfell, warden of the North, and now he was just a broken man rotting beneath the city. His thoughts swirled with regret. He should have acted sooner. He should have sent his daughters away when he had the chance. He should have arrested Cersei and Joffrey the moment Robert died. He had tried to play the game with honor, but the game didn't care about honor. It devoured it. The door creaked. A sliver of light pierced the cell. Footsteps. Ned tried to sit up, groaning. The pain in his leg was unbearable. A shadow entered. A small figure. Thin, careful. It was Varys. The spider moved like a whisper. He knelt beside Ned and set down a skin of water. "You must drink," he said gently. "They've left you to die slowly." Ned took the water and drank deeply. It was cold and clean, better than any wine. Varys watched him with pity. "I warned you, Lord Stark. I told you the game is played with daggers, not letters." "You also said you serve the realm," Ned rasped. "So serve it! Free me!" "I cannot," Varys said softly. "You are surrounded by wolves wearing lion skins. They want your head, but there may still be a way to live." Ned stared at him. "Joffrey sits the throne," Varys continued, "and he is cruel. But his mother holds his leash for now. She wants you to confess. To a lie. To treason," Varys said. "Say you tried to steal the throne. That Joffrey is the true heir. Bend the knee. Save yourself. Save your daughters." Ned's heart clenched. His daughters. Sansa was still in the Red Keep. Arya he didn't know. He could only pray she had escaped. "I can't say Joffrey is the true king. He isn't." "Truth doesn't matter here," Varys whispered. "Survival does." Then he stood, coke swirling. "Think on it, Lord Stark. The realm needs you alive." He left, and the cell returned to silence. Ned closed his eyes. His body ached, but worse than the pain was the shame. Was this what it meant to lose? To surrender his name, his honor, just to stay breathing? But then he saw Sansa's face in his mind. She was only a girl, and if he died, what would happen to her? The next morning he was dragged from his cell. Guards shoved him forward, and he limped through the Red Keep's corridors, bruised, bleeding, broken. They led him into the great sept of Baelor, where the crowds were already gathered, hundreds, thousands filling the square. Whispers filled the air. On the steps of the sept stood the iron throne, brought there for spectacle. Joffrey sat upon it, looking smug and cold. Cersei stood nearby, wearing a black gown and a false look of sorrow. Beside them stood Sansa. Her face was pale, her hands shook. When she saw her father, her mouth trembled. Ned's heart shattered. Grand Maester Pycelle stepped forward and bellowed, "Lord Eddard Stark, former hand of the king, has been charged with treason against the crown." The crowd booed. Some shouted, "Kill the traitor." Joffrey raised a hand. The sept fell silent. "Speak," the boy king said. "Speak your final words." Ned stared at him, this arrogant child wearing a crown he didn't deserve. Then he looked at Sansa. She mouthed a single word, "Please." Ned closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he knelt. "My name is Eddard Stark," he said, voice echoing across the square. "I am a traitor to the crown. I plotted against King Joffrey. I sought to place my brother-in-law Stannis on the throne. I was wrong." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Cersei gave a slow nod. Varys, in the shadows, exhaled. Sansa wept. But Joffrey only grinned. "Good," he said. "Now bring me his head." Cersei turned sharply. "Joffrey, no, that wasn't the plan. I am the king," Joffrey shouted. 2 gold cloaks seized Ned. He didn't fight. He looked to Sansa one last time, then to the sky. And as the sword rose, Arya watched from the crowd, hidden in the masses, eyes wide with horror. The blade came down, and the north bled. The sept of Baelor still stank of blood. Ned Stark's execution broke the world like a hammer on glass. For a moment, the crowd had frozen in shock. Then the screams started. Some ran, others cried. The bells rang wildly, but no one could hear them over the sound of chaos. And in the middle of it all, hidden among the pillars and commoners, Arya Stark didn't cry. She watched. She didn't blink as her father's head fell. She didn't scream as the blood sprayed the stones. She only gripped needle tighter, the sword Jon Snow had given her. Her knuckles turned white. She was too stunned to feel anything until she saw Sansa collapse on the steps, her face pale, her voice lost in a sob. That's when it hit her. This wasn't a bad dream. Her father was dead, and Joffrey had killed him. Arya ducked low, slipping through the crowd. No one noticed the girl with dirt on her face and fire in her eyes. They were too busy trying to understand what had just happened. She made it to the alley behind the sept where the shadows were thicker and silence took over. There, someone grabbed her wrist. She spun, blade raised, but the face she saw was familiar. Yoren, a black brother from the Night's Watch. "I saw you in the crowd," he said. "I saw what they did. Come, girl, you're not safe here." "I'm not going with you," Arya snapped, shaking. I need to find Sansa. You need to survive," he said flatly. "You think your sister's safe. You think any Stark is safe now." Arya froze. "Your father's death was no justice," Yoren went on. "It was a message, and the next message will be written in your blood." Arya looked toward the towering sept. Her teeth clenched. She hated running, but she hated being dead more. So she followed Yoren. Back inside the Red Keep, Sansa Stark was pulled from the steps of the throne. Her eyes were hollow, her dress was soaked in tears and terror. Cersei held her by the arm, whispering things she didn't hear. "Smile," the queen muttered. "You're betrothed to a king. You must learn to smile through blood." Sansa didn't respond. She stared at the blood-stained sword, still wet from her father's death. Later that night, she sat in silence while Joffrey showed off. He paraded through the throne room like he had won a great war. The lords clapped. The ladies bowed. Only Tyrion Lannister, standing at the edge of the hall, looked disgusted. Even Jaime seemed distant, arms crossed, watching Joffrey with unreadable eyes. And Cersei smiled, but it wasn't real. In the north, the news traveled fast. At Winterfell, Maester Luwin delivered the Raven's letter to Robb Stark with trembling hands. Robb read the words, dropped the scroll, and left the room without speaking. An hour later, the banners of the north were raised. Grey direwolves howled from the hills. Robb stood in the great hall, armor strapped across his chest, his voice filled with fire. "They killed my father." The hall was silent. No trial, no honor, just murder. Men stood. Old bannermen of House Stark, Karstarks, Umbers, Mandalis. They raised their swords. "The North remembers," shouted Great John Umber. Robb turned to them. "Then ride with me. We march south, not as soldiers, but as wolves. Not as soldiers, but as wolves." Outside, the ravens flew. From the Dreadfort to White Harbor, every house loyal to the Starks answered. And at Riverrun, Catelyn Stark wept. She had feared it. She had known what kind of boy Joffrey was, what kind of woman Cersei was. But nothing prepared her for the weight of a widow's grief and a son's fury. She kissed Robb's brow and whispered, "Bring him justice, not vengeance." But deep down she knew there was no difference anymore. War had come, not just swords and shields, but blood for blood. And in the shadows of the free cities, whispers spread. A girl with silver hair and dragons at her back had heard of Ned Stark's death. And across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen began to dream of thrones again. The Game of Thrones had changed. The rules were gone, and the players were now killers. Smoke curled from every corner of the realm. War had truly begun. In the north, Robb Stark led 20,000 men past the neck, his direwolf, Grey Wind, running beside him like a ghost. He wore no crown, but every man called him king in the north now. The old words echoed in every campfire and war chant. The north remembers. But Robb didn't fight with words, he fought with rage. Each mile they marched south, his heart beat for one reason only: justice for Ned Stark. And while Robb assembled his army far away in King's Landing, Sansa Stark became a prisoner in all but name. Joffrey made her stand beside him as he held court. He made her watch while he ordered beatings, punishments, and worse. The boy king's cruelty deepened by the day. One afternoon, he forced Sansa to look at her father's head on a spike. "This is what happens to traitors," he whispered, smiling like it was a game. Sansa stared at the rotting head, bile rising in her throat. She nearly collapsed. But she didn't cry, not this time. Something cold settled inside her, a seed of hate, and she began to understand. Tears wouldn't save her. Obedience wouldn't save her. Obedience wouldn't save her. The only thing that could save her now, it was playing the game, the same game that had destroyed her father. Back in the dungeons, Arya Stark had vanished. Or so the court believed. In truth, she rode north disguised as a boy named Arry, hidden among the Night's Watch recruits. Her hair was cut short, her voice silent, her sword sharp. Every night, she whispered the names of those who had wronged her: Joffrey, Cersei, Ilyn Payne, the Hound. Her list grew. She didn't weep for her father anymore. She trained, and one day she vowed she would come back for every name. Across the narrow sea, the flames burned hotter. Daenerys Targaryen held her newborn dragons close, their scales warm against her skin. Word of the usurper's death, King Robert reached her in whispers. "Ned Stark is dead," Ser Jorah Mormont told her. "The throne is weak. The boy king rules now." Dany's eyes narrowed. "A boy sits where a dragon once ruled." She stood atop a hill in the red waste, her dragons shrieking into the sky. Then Westeros is ready to be taken. Jorah bowed. But you need ships, soldiers. I'll find them, she said, or I'll burn the world until they come. Meanwhile, at Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon received the raven bearing Ned Stark's letter. He read it in silence, then handed it to Melisandre, the Red Woman always at his side. "The throne is mine by right," he said. "And by fire," Melisandre whispered. "The Lord of Light has shown me your path. And in that path I saw a great shadow choking the sun. Only you can stop it." Stannis's jaw tightened. "Then we begin." Back at King's Landing, the city was unraveling. The Lannisters moved like spiders spinning webs, striking silently. Jaime had returned, his golden armor still stained from the Riverlands. He had left fire in his wake-burned villages, captured bannermen, and won Tully hostage. Tywin Lannister, the true mastermind, had set his camp in the west, summoning all his power. He spoke little, but every command he gave was followed by steel. "Crush the wolf pup," he told his men, "before he grows fangs." But Robb wasn't a pup anymore. At Whispering Wood, Robb Stark struck first, ambushing Jaime's forces in the dark, smashing their lines with northern fury. The Kingslayer was captured, dragged in chains to the Stark camp. When Robb stood over him, Jaime only smirked. "Did your father teach you to fight like this?" he asked. "No," Robb replied coldly, "but he taught me how to finish what others start." As the war escalated, alliances shifted. Lords swore oaths in the day and betrayed them at night. Gold changed hands faster than swords did. Varys and Littlefinger played their own game beneath the chaos, moving secrets like pieces on a board. One sought peace in shadows, the other sought power in flame. And as autumn bled into winter, the ravens carried one truth across the land: Ned Stark was dead. But his death had started something bigger than anyone could control. The realm would never know peace again, only fire and blood.